Syria has welcomed US moves to lift sanctions, calling it a positive step that will help with its post-war recovery. The US Treasury and State Departments have temporarily waived some measures and eased others that focus on businesses. President Trump announced the reversal of sanctions against Syria during his visit to Saudi Arabia last week. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that the waiver will enable the supply of electricity, energy, water, even sanitation. Let's speak now to Mahmoud Abdelwahed, who's live for us in Damascus. Mahmoud, so what has the reaction been in Syria to the lifting of these sanctions? And give us a sense of the impact that the lifting of these sanctions will have on the day-to-day life of ordinary Syrians.
Well, Malene, first of all, these sanctions were imposed on Syria in several phases. They started in 1979, and they're all triggered by the actions and destabilizing rule of the Assad's regime in Syria and in the region. 1979, this was the first time the US sanctioned Syria, and when it labeled Syria as a state sponsoring terrorism. In 2004, for Syria's rule in the unrest in Lebanon, and 2011 during the brutal crackdown by the Syrian regime on protesters and the human suffering caused also by human rights abuses by the Assad regime against civilians and against protesters. The latest one was in 2020 under what is so-called the Civilian Protection Act, known as the Caesar Act, and that triggered that targeted the foreign companies doing businesses with the Syrian government under the Assad rule. The impact of lifting those sanctions now has a huge benefit on Syrians and on the new leadership. First of all, the Syrian government can now resume the oil exports and can gain huge revenues to help reconstruct their war-torn countries. It will also reconnect Syria to the international financial SWIFT code, and also can fix all the destroyed sectors, including healthcare system, the education. The investment can attract more investment, foreign investment to the country, and this way the US companies can compete with Chinese firms about $400 billion contract for reconstructing Syria. This way, if things go well, Syria can reduce the number of refugees, which are now about 6.3 million people, refugees, according to UN latest data.
Okay, many thanks for that, Mahmoud Abdelwahed, there in Damascus for us.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.